Our next guest is actually no stranger in Christian evangelical circles, has a significant following. His name is Dr. Voddie Baucham, Dean of Theology, has an extensive educational background, including postgraduate study at the University of Oxford, England. Doc, thank you for being on the program. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate your time. You know, you're kind of a mixed bag to me. You may not be a mixed bag to yourself, but you are in a circle.
I'm a mixed bag to most people.
Yeah, you are. You're in a circle of Christian evangelicals, but you also said some things that were quite contrary to Donald Trump. You called him an immoral leader, which, as you know, many of your colleagues in the Christian evangelical faith, they kind of dismiss, not kind of, they did dismiss morality as a prerequisite to leadership as it relates to former President Donald Trump. But there are some things that I would like to discuss with you on the record. Let's start with the social justice movement. I believe that church should be a place that expresses and transforms policy because of its value system. What are your thoughts about the Black Lives Matter movement?
Wow, well, that's two very different things. The Black Lives Matter movement is very anti-church, it's very anti-Christian. It's a Marxist organization that was started explicitly as a Marxist organization that had openly anti-family and openly anti-Christian sentiments. Those sentiments had to be removed from their website because people found out about them. So if you're asking me about faith and Black Lives Matter, I would say that the two are mutually exclusive, especially from a Christian perspective.
Okay, let me put it to you this way, because I think what you're doing is connecting an organizational structure to the movement structure, and here's where I bring them back together. There's a movement to emphasize Black lives, and that doesn't mean those individuals are part of the organization Black Lives Matter, and there are some definite positives that Black Lives Matter. They've been able to work and negotiate with various governments around the country.
You mean in order to enrich themselves personally?
Well, let's go ahead and get into it, brother, since you posed the question. In Minneapolis, it was actually Black Lives Matter, the organization, who brought the attention to the murder of George Floyd.
Actually, it was the video that did that.
Well, sir, remember.
They didn't do that. The video did that. There was no need for them to do it because the video was out there.
Give me a moment, brother. If I was a guest on your show, sir, I would be respectful. We only have a certain amount of time. Not only did they bring in the organizers to help with the creation of protests and rallies and marches, they also negotiated with officials, including the mayor of Minneapolis. They're the ones who contacted Benjamin Crump directly. I'm friends with Benjamin Crump. They did something very similar in the city of Atlanta. They negotiated a new plan for policing in the city of Atlanta by meeting with Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. They did something similar in Miami, LA, and also New York. That was the organization. Now, the organization, they typically would take a step back once the public gets involved, and you saw white women, white men, children, brown folks, black folks all marching in agreement that Black lives should matter. So let's talk about the social justice movement of Black Lives Matter. If Jesus was here, do you think he would say Black Lives Matter?
Well, if Jesus was here, he would say lives matter. I know, for example, if Jesus was here, he would say that the Black lives that are being obliterated in the womb matter. And as a Christian, I believe that lives matter from the moment of conception all the way to their moment of natural death. Okay. And so I'm absolutely committed to lives mattering, but I will not be held captive by an organization that has used that terminology in order to back people into a corner and cause them to live with this cognitive dissonance between the organization that, again, is antithetical to biblical Christianity, and the idea that people, regardless of who they are and where they come from, matter. I'm a Christian. I believe people are made in the image of God and have inherent dignity, worth, and value.
Let me go to a statement you made about Jesus would say all lives matter. Remember the parable of the sheep, brother?
Actually, I said Jesus would say lives matter.
Do you remember the parable of the sheep?
If I listen, you corrected me earlier for interrupting you. I'm gonna correct you now for misquoting me. I said
Brother,
Jesus said lives.
okay, that's fine. That's a distinction that doesn't make a difference. My question to you was, would he say Black Lives Matter? And you did not agree that he would say Black Lives Matter. That was the genesis of my question. So my second question to you is, do you remember the parable of the sheep?
Yes.
You're a theologian.
Yes.
In that parable, Jesus talks about walking 100 sheep, and then one goes astray. The parable goes that the 99 are stopped and attention or emphasis is placed only on the one. While we know through just a sense of humanity that all of the sheep technically matter, it's the sheep that has been put in this ditch that the shepherd stops everything, pauses everything to pay attention to that one. You see, I believe Jesus would have said Black Lives Matter because if you go to a community, brother, and you're looking at the deprivation in that community, there's an emphasis that needs to be placed on making sure we have economic equity, making sure that we have social access, making sure that we have reforms in policing and criminal justice, because those are the biases that we've been living under. So that would be the sheep in the ditch, brother, and the shepherd would pay attention to that one, as the parable says when Jesus spoke it. You don't agree with that?
Not at all, because you completely misused that text. The parable is one of three parables that were told together: the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. The emphasis there is on the fact that the Pharisees did not celebrate when individuals came to faith in Christ. So you absolutely obliterated the meaning of that text. The other thing is this. I don't believe that black
wait a minute, you said I obliterated. Wait a minute, Doc. You said I obliterated the meaning of the text.
So you get to finish, but I don't.
Well, I don't have unlimited time with you, brother, and I can't let you just blow me all the time. So you made an accusation.
And
you made an accusation.
You made one, you wouldn't let me get in. I'm saying you misused the text, and you won't let me, your guest.
Well, go ahead and tell me how I misused the text
after you finished.
Go ahead and tell me. You got to be quick though, brother. How did I misuse the text?
You misused the text because you allegorized the text in order to pour your meaning into it, when Jesus very clearly used that text in order to say something very specific. You don't get to change what he meant by that.
What was the specifics of the text?
The specifics of the text were to rebuke the Pharisees because they were not celebrating when people came to faith in Christ. It didn't have anything to do with economic equity. The economic equity.
Let me give you my understanding of the text.
The talents makes it clear that Jesus was not about economic equity.
Brother, listen to me, brother. Allow me. Okay, I got you. I understand. You noted your rebuttal on the record.
Taking the one talent.
Got you, Doc. I got 3 minutes with you, brother. So here's my understanding of the text. The text not only was talking about those who are Pharisees, which will be the religious government structure of that time, but the text was also about the judgment that individuals had toward people or toward those who were coming into a new understanding of who God was and who God is to them. Because the Pharisees were judgmental to the believer. Because I don't have unlimited time, let me ask you about the social movement Black Lives Matter again. Do you think the social movement of Black Lives Matter is a bad thing, or do you think it's a good thing?
No, I think it's a bad thing. I think
Tell me why.
Number one, I think it's dividing people. Let me go back to what you said earlier.
But people are already divided, brother.
Can I? Again, are we going to be equitable since you're about equity? Can we be equitable in the way that we communicate with one another?
I got 1 minute, man. Go ahead, Doc.
So what I'm saying is, by the way, I love this.
Yeah, it's good.
What I'm saying is that if you go to those cities that you mentioned, yes, BLM got involved in Minneapolis and Atlanta, and the crime rate skyrocketed specifically because of the things that they got involved in.
All right, that's
you have what's called this Ferguson effect. It's absolutely true. Anybody can go and look at this at the crime records before BLM got involved and after.
Okay, all right, I got to come to a close. My producer's giving me the rap sign. But I do want you to remember that in places like Baltimore, where Black Lives Matter had a strong presence as well, crime has actually decreased by double digits. Arrests have decreased by 39%. Incarceration has decreased by 28%. Murder and violent crimes has decreased by 12%. You can go and get those stats. 2 university studies did that. That was based on a coordinated effort between Marilyn Mosby and a reimagined prosecutorial format. And they've been able to decrease crime. Now you talk about the rise in crime. Yes, some of these cities have seen a rise in crime, but you want to blame Black Lives Matter for the rise in crime when you are ignoring the fact that police officers called in with the blue flu, that cops refused to respond to calls, that executives and law enforcement and executives as politicians.
Why should that matter? Because Black Lives Matter wants to defund the police.
Unwilling to actually police.
Black Lives Matter wants to defund the police, so they got
want
exactly
to reprioritize the budget.
No, sir.
Let me give you
they
an
want
idea.
to defund
Let me give you an idea. Let me give you an idea to consider. And they should defund it.
It's a radical Marxist idea that
but think
goes to the heart of the.
Okay, I got to wrap, but think about what you're saying. Places like Ithaca, New York, 51% of the 911 calls did not even require a cop, they required a social worker. So Ithaca, New York decided to respond to their community and start hiring mental health social workers to respond to 911 calls because that is what the community said we actually need. But before I let you go, brother, you go around the entire world, literally the whole planet, and you preach what you call to be truth. Do you tell the white evangelicals you preach to they need to get rid of that picture of white Jesus?
I tell them they need to get rid of pictures of Jesus, period, because it's a violation of the second commandment.
When I think Jesus is okay,
a picture of Jesus is a violation of the second commandment. So I don't want to see any pictures of Jesus because it's a violation of the second commandment. It's a graven image.
Tell them to get rid of their white Jesus.
It's a graven image. They need to get rid of it. They shouldn't be pictures of Jesus.
Doc, I got to bring you back on when we have more time. But I appreciate you, man. You're a good sport, brother. All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time on the interview.